So one of the most interesting things about my whole process of contact is where I came out the end side of it at, and that's with the activation of a dormant spiritual skill, a capacity that Lord only knows how long it was laying dormant, but the skill is working with crystals. And this is the crystal that I use for this work. And it also is a body of contact work. And through them, I'm able to receive transmissions from extraterrestrial intelligence. If you find yourself sitting here watching this video today, I just want to take a quick moment to say that it's due to 1, divine intervention, and 2, the extreme generosity of a single person who would never let themselves be revealed. This person made it possible for me to step away for an important 2 years from my more normal work to focus in on this work, the crystal work, to dive into it more at my leisure and with my undivided attention. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you, and Lord, love a duck. You did. And again, I can't thank you enough. Let's review for a moment what we went over in the last segment. What's going to be in the segment following this, if you're watching this video compilation. There are 2 types of calls that can come in over the crystal. The first is live, and the second is pre-recorded. Some pre-recorded calls, messages, are stored directly in the crystal itself, notably in the inner planes that are in the crystal. Some go out beyond the body of the crystal itself. Live calls always go out beyond the body of the crystal. There are story form transmissions. There are beings, specific beings that come through, and of the specific beings, there are what we are now calling the contact series. Only the contact series frames, which display the beings centered and facing front, are modified from the original orientation in which the being actually came through. These frames remove all or most other data from the frame and highlight an individual being. These frames are to be used for direct eye-to-eye contact. Crystals are organized geometrical fractal patterns that repeat and repeat. So no data in the frame can ever be lost by repeating a frame, for instance, or a portion of a frame, for instance, one side of a being's face to the other side of the being's face. The process is actually a way to zoom in on a portion of the data in a frame and enlarge that in order to retrieve more data from it. There are data, symbols in each of the frames that come into more obvious view through this process, which otherwise might not have ever been seen. When I work with the frames, when working with the frames in general, what it is a process of discovery. And essentially, that's what the whole process of working with the crystal is all about, even to begin with. It's a tool I'm using to help me explore experiences I have moved through in the past. Every night, an hour or so before I laid down, a very tangible energy arrived. And this energy would work through my system. The first time this happened, I experienced it as I'm laying horizontally, and I can detect that there's a bright white light above the crown of my head, and it simply passes from the crown of my head all the way down through my body until finally out the soles of my feet. And this first night that it happened, this happened 3 times. The light moves through me 3 times, scans through me 3 times. This is the awareness I have as it's happening. I'm being scanned. So every night, this happened every night for the next 3 years. It just starts at the crown of my head. It jellyfishes. There's this jellyfish kind of movement down through my body and then out the soles of my feet. And then bilaterally, this energy starts clearing my system, starting with my feet and then moving up to my ankles, shins, thighs, hip creases, pelvic floor. Every night, it feels like every bone in my body is being broken. It's slow. The process is slow. It's taking years. It's unrelentless. It's coming every night and painful. These abductions have not been easy for me to process. Their experiences, typical experiences on the table. I didn't have only dream state awareness back then. I lived them in first person, in the out-of-body state, but I didn't let myself remember that until 2009. What I had to learn how to do was I had to learn how to scream through to my physical body. And it took me 30 years in this experience to be able to actually scream through to my body, to wake myself up in physical space. The idea of screaming through to the physical body was to wake myself up to my conscious state, so that I could throw myself back in there with more awareness. Because when you do maintain a conscious state in the fields, there are rules. So I wanted to meet these beings, as it were, on a level playing field, on their turf. A part of that was to understand more what was happening, which as a child and for most of my early adulthood, I did not understand. This is actually a part of my experience I've never talked about before, and I have spoken of my experiences online for a number of years, almost 12 years now. So it's time that I start talking about this aspect of this story too. I think I'm going to jump right to the crafts and the sightings. So I have witnessed many different types of crafts from many different viewpoints. I've witnessed them just standing on the ground while they're airborne. I've witnessed myself in groups being ushered toward craft. Usually in a sort of a deserty, mountainous area, like toward the end of a cliff, is how it often happens. And there's groups of us being taken aboard craft. I've also witnessed directly from within the crafts themselves. I have some, let me say there's a range of experience I have with my sightings, anywhere from the standard saucer to the extremely beautiful to the downright horrifying. And I will say that the sightings are in the etheric frequency bandwidth of our planet, not directly in physical space. So you would have to have an expanded frequency range or an expanded vision to see these crafts. And if you do, you'll see them. I do see them. The scary ones, I do want to mention this because I don't think that it does get talked a lot about, and because I do go out of body, because I can make that conscious shift into the etheric frequency bandwidth of our planet and see what's going on there, I think it's actually important that I do start talking about this. So the scary crap have to do with catastrophic events. So they're only associated with catastrophic events. One of the first things that I was taken to see, and I do not know where I am in time, so what I saw could have been in the past. but it also could be in the future. I don't know. But what I saw, I was standing on Main Street in Santa Monica, and I was looking up into the sky. It was daylight, and the sky was dark, and I had just arrived. I had made the shift there, and I'm trying to cognize where I am, and I'm taking in all of this information. And it was ominous because it was daylight and the sky was dark. So I was having to process that information, but at the same time, I'm seeing something up there, and what it turns out to be is a mushroom cloud explosion. And then my attention is taken to the left of where I'm looking. And from up here, I can just see thousands, just thousands. I could not even see sky through them, just thousands of these jellyfish-shaped craft. And they were wafting down to the ground. And again, ominous feeling, the sheer scope of how many of them are there. You know, the feeling is, I don't know if you've ever seen this, I hope many of you haven't, but it reminds me of how the bugs come to take care of our decomposed corpses when we're put into the ground. And that makes sense because these are associated with catastrophic events, that there would be a cleanup crew. I was made or let to see that, and I feel it must be to have brought that information back to us for some reason. It's not that this necessarily has to happen or that these craft are here, but that if humanity goes a certain way, they could. What I learned through the out-of-body experience and how many craft I've been on, and with how many different kinds of beings, is that I'm working with a lot of different races, a lot of different species, hundreds, if not thousands, you know, so not your typical 1 or 2 or 3 or 12. And my job and my joy is to bring those here through to you. So everything starts and ends with light and vision and what I'm able to do through the crystals and working with the crystals as communications devices. So a part of what came to me was that I did this work in Atlantis. Please don't laugh. I do this work on board craft. It's what makes this work be more understandable to me now. Something that's really interesting to me is how this skill, this previously dormant skill that is now activated and that I now have with the crystals, what's interesting is how this actually came about, how this skill got activated. While I was still in the process, the years of regularly going out of body and letting the Kundalini do its work on my system, I came across a person who, through his work, mentioned another person. This other person happened to be an ET artist by the name of Claar. Her given name is Christine Dennett, a wonderful artist. If you haven't come across her work, I'll link it in the video description below. I reached out to her, and well, let me say, there's a reason that I reached out to her, and that is because there is a particular group of beings who would come down into my room at night and take me on board craft. This whole experience was very challenging for me to process. And in the experience, I could not open my eyes. I could not open my eyes and see who these beings were. So I wrote to Claar, saying if she could pick up on the frequencies and render for me an idea of who they are, what they look like. In the process of connecting with Christine, a skill that I've had somehow since birth kicked in for deep level connection. It would happen as an example when I was in school and I would be studying. I would sleep in the bed with my books. And somehow, well, I know now I could shift into the etheric frequency version of my room, open my books, read them and study, and then wake up in physical space, having that information intact. What I did this night was something similar, but even deeper. And let me say, it's not something I do so much as something that just happens. It's rather like you're breathing or falling in love, and something that just happens. Now, there's a reason that it happens, and I won't go into that, but this night as I'm going to sleep, and as a particular desire is igniting to me. I mean, I just feel that it's so wonderful that there are people like Christine with artistic talents who can bring out the contents of what's in their own awareness and paint or draw or just bring that out in a way to put here in this field for others to see. And I didn't have any skill like that myself that I knew of, but my connection with Christine was causing me to reach deeper into myself for what was there. And this night, as I was falling asleep, I just fell into myself, into a deep, concentrated state of focus, into a state that I simply call stasis. It's just full body bliss. Some people will call this sleep paralysis, but I don't experience it this way. I experience it in a way that the word stasis makes more sense to me. I'm perfectly still, I'm perfectly pinned, but the energy that has me pinned is glorious. Yeah, when I'm in this state, I never want to break it. So I fall into this state and find myself at a certain point in the cosmos. The night sky is all around me. Stars light the sky, and sequentially, one being at a time steps up directly before me. Behind it is the backdrop of the star system it's from, and the being rotates slowly over the course, each of about 60 seconds, 1 minute each, 2 minutes tops. And the being falls away, the next being comes into view. The backdrop of the star system that it's from is behind it. And again, it rotates for me to take fully in. This happens all night. Hundreds of beings came forward. When I woke up in the morning, I had this skill activated. The skill with the crystal had been activated. It did take me some time to discover the skill in physical space. But as of that night, this dormant capacity, now active with the crystal, was in effect. Upon connecting with Kasara, being writing a letter and receiving a reply, an interesting capacity within me kicks in. In this instance, I am not aware of it happening until I receive the related experience later tonight. The capacity is one for deep level connection with the potentiality field fundamentally, which is where the blueprints to everything are. I do not know how this happens. I only know that it does. This is the awareness that presents to me. I just start falling into myself, into a highly concentrated point of focus, and merge with the field. In this instance, I am concentrating into Kasara's blueprint, syncing with the data, the whole evolution and clearing of neural pathways that leads to her visioning the extra dimensionals. I am restructuring instantaneously. I may vision them now similarly myself, which is precisely what begins happening this very night. I begin slipping into a beautiful state of what I call stasis, bliss, and for the length of the entire night, vision ET after ET after ET against the backdrop of the star system there from. Hundreds of beings are stepping through, one after the other, not one duplicate, each one entirely unique. So this is how it happened. It is due to the capacity to merge with the blueprints, or what some people might call entangle, and intersecting with Christine here in physical space, that the previously dormant spiritual skill with the crystal activated.